Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and today I wanted to talk about something. Well, I wanted to start off with something that I'm not quite sure how I feel about. And I wanted to know your guys' opinion as well. So, of course, you can tweet me or Facebook GSMC_basketball because I want to know your opinions. Now, I was kind of eavesdropping, but kind of not eavesdropping because this discussion took place right in front of me. So, and I was kind of like sitting there. And so, I mean, it's not really eavesdropping if they're talking across you, right? So we'll just say this is a conversation that I overheard, that I purposely didn't say anything while the conversation was taking place because I wanted to hear their opinion. And I just wanted to basically just hear their opinion and just wanted to know because I have my own opinion. So I wanted to hear what other people have to say. And sometimes when you speak up in a conversation, when A, you're not invited to be a part of the conversation, and B, you have like a strong opinion or any kind of opinion, sometimes you sway others, right? And things like that. And especially if you're not invited to be a part of the conversation, you risk saying something not smart, because you don't know the whole context of the conversation. And also depending, like, this is not controversial at all, but like if you were having a controversial discussion or listening to a controversial discussion, and then you piped in, then you may make it more controversial and maybe awkward. I don't know. So and I always have something to say about everything. And that's probably why I do podcasts, because I just have so much to say all the time. But in this particular instance, I was really quiet because I wanted to hear everybody's opinion. So let's get down to it. Now, the world of basketball, NBA basketball, has opened up the possibility to allow advertisements and sponsors to have like a patch on the jerseys. Now, this is not something new. This is not an innovative concept to the NBA. If you watch any other sport, you will see it on, even if you just watch men's basketball, you'll see it overseas on overseas jerseys. You'll see it especially in soccer. You'll see it on the WNBA and things like that, where companies will pay to have their like emblem and their logo on jerseys and things like that. So like they're kind of like sponsors or whatever, which honestly, I don't like it. I think it's awkward. I think it's weird. Sometimes it just breaks up like the flow. Now, okay, because like for instance, especially when certain teams will have like their sponsorship and it'll be like across the entire front, like the whole chest area. So it's like you don't even know who's playing. Well, I mean, you know who's playing, but then when you look at the jersey, like I want it to say like Kings or Timberwolves. I want it to say Sacramento. I want it to say whatever, I don't want it to say, I don't know, like whatever. I can't even think of any. I don't want it to say like McDonald's on the front, or I guess that's for the McDonald's All-American, but I can't even think. I don't know. Like, I just don't want it to say like Foot Locker on the front of a jersey when it's the Pelicans playing or something, which is not a deal right now, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want it to say, I don't know, Pillsbury on the front of a jersey, because like sometimes it'll be like really big and obnoxious and it'll look cluttered and things like that, because if they have multiple, I don't know, I personally don't like it. And that's one thing that I never liked about WNBA jerseys or overseas jerseys, because I'm like, who is sponsoring you? Like, well, I mean, like, what's the name of your team? Like the LA Pillsbury? I don't know. Well, so the NBA has ventured into this arena, and which is fine, whatever, more money, it's all good. I get it from a business standpoint. So and I guess the reason why this is mostly on my mind is, one, like I said, my friends were discussing this, and also because it directly affects my squad, the Sacramento Kings. And they have decided on a partnership with Blue Diamond Growers, which is actually a Sacramento-based almond company. And this will be starting next season, okay? But for roughly $5 million a year in a 3-year agreement, they will have, luckily, it's not huge and obnoxious, okay? It's just a 2.5 by 2.5 inch patch on the left shoulder. I can kind of work with it. I've seen some pictures of what it's supposedly going to look like. And thankfully, because of the way, like, the coloring of the Kings' new jerseys, it's like this dark, deep purple. And because Blue Diamond is a really dark, like, navy blue, like their logo is blue, like their colors are blue, it kind of matches. It doesn't look too obnoxious. It's not like they are like red or green on a purple and white jersey. So I can kind of work with it. And the fact that their first advertisement is going to be with a Sacramento based company, it just, that whole Sacramento pride deal that all of us love here that are Sacramento natives and things like that. It just, so I can work with that. And then the Kings are actually the second team to do this. The first was the Philadelphia 76ers, who also for about $5 million a year in a 3-year contract as well with Stubhub. Okay. So I just hope that it doesn't just have that huge Stubhub logo on the Sixers. I don't know. Okay, so I mean, it's cool because this is, again, so the Kings organization is getting an additional $5 million a year for the next 3 years just to have this patch on their jerseys. Oh, I get it. Business wise, makes sense. It's not that big. It's not that obnoxious, whatever. But on the flip side, it just opens the door for it to be obnoxious. Like, I mean, they can only have one, which thankfully is a good thing. But I don't know. I just don't want it to get wild and crazy. And like, I think I'm okay with it because, one, it kind of matches with the uniforms, and two, it's not huge. Okay. And then but then the flip side of this, because now, okay, so the Kings and the Sixers both got $15 million over 3 years, right? So of course that leads us on to think that other big, like major teams, like the Warriors, the, like iconic teams, especially not just teams that have been doing well in recent years, but just like classic iconic teams such as the Lakers, the Celtics, and things like that. Even perhaps the Raptors, only because they have started on the up and up after last season. So, some teams like that could demand more money, of course, like millions and millions of dollars. So I get it. It makes sense. But then you also have to deal with the fact of endorsement contracts and things like that. So players, as we know, have different endorsements from a variety of companies out there, whether they're athletic based or not. And then also the NBA itself has different partnerships with different companies. So you can't like clash like the whole, you can't be a Pepsi guy and have Coke on your jersey type thing. Okay. And then also sponsorships and partnerships within each individual organization, not just the players themselves. So it's kind of difficult to get a sponsor that can appease everyone. So I think that's another reason why not too many teams have decided to do it. And also just like aesthetic reasons. I just don't like it. And so that's kind of like my gripe. And of course, my friends, when they were discussing it too, they kind of had the same sentiment that we don't want it to look too much like the European basketball jerseys where there's just so many advertisements and they're huge and everything. And you don't know who's really playing because they may pay to have it across the entire front or something like that, or like a major huge obnoxious logo and things like that. But I think that what the Kings have done, as far as like a Kings fan standpoint, I think it's okay. And I like the fact that at least they made sure to do it with a Sacramento based company, because that of course will appease us even more. if we have to deal with it, at least let it be a Sacramento-based company, right? So that is going to bring us to our break. When we come back, I'm going to discuss an injury update as well as a surgery update that has happened this past week, as well as some controversy with the Rockets, a Rockets guard, from the global games over in China against the Pelicans. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I wanted to get into some injury reports, some injury updates during this preseason time. Now, Anthony Davis is a guy that he plays for the Pelicans. Okay. I don't know if you don't know, he was a number 1 draft pick overall out of Kentucky in 2012. He, has an H&R Block commercial. I don't know how you don't know this guy. So, especially if you enjoy basketball right now, college basketball or professional, whatever may have you. So he unfortunately is out right now. The poor guy. So now Anthony Davis is a guy that has had to sit out at least 14 plus games a season. So in just the last 4 years that he's been in the NBA due to different injuries. Now, he did have to sit out last season. He had to sit out a total of, I believe, over 21 games last season due to his shoulder. And he also had to have knee surgeries. So he was out the latter half of the Pelican season due to that and things like that. So I have been really excited for him to be back and in it to win it for this season. But unfortunately, against the Rockets, when they played the Pelicans in Beijing, China this past week, Anthony Davis sprained his right ankle in the first quarter of the game. So he had to actually get off the floor. He had to go back. They had to evaluate him and things like that. And as far as updates are concerned right now, it is determined that he, according to reports as of late, it's a grade 2 sprain, so he is probably going to be sitting out quite some time. He most likely is going to miss, of course, the home opener. So that's another sad thing for the Pelicans. On top of it, they lost to the Rockets that game. And it's just one of those things where this guy, this athlete, we always discuss this and we always talk about how as athletes, their bodies are their main concern. Like they have to rest. We've been discussing in previous episodes whether or not the NBA season is too long. Are players getting back in it? And we discussed this in a previous episode, most recently with Ben of the 76ers. We were discussing when is too soon to come back? How long should he sit out? And unfortunately for Anthony Davis, this luckily is not a reoccurring problem as far as like he didn't injure his knee again or his shoulder or anything like that, but this is like a new injury. So, it's kind of like one by one, little things are happening for him. So it's really disappointing, I'm sure, for him because, when you recover from one injury and you feel healthy and things like that, you don't want to hurt something else and have to sit out for another reason and things like that. So he will be out for quite some time. I will give you guys, of course, another update with him as that comes in and as that follows and things like that. He'll just need a lot of rest. So hopefully Anthony will be able to get back in it as soon as possible, but as soon, of course, as his body will allow, because that is another guy that, of course, will be a major contributor to the Pelicans, and he has always been a major contributor no matter where he's played and things like that, and even in college. But for the Pelicans, to have a fully healthy Anthony Davis without any health concerns, any health setbacks and things like that would be really good for the Pelicans. I know that that's something that they truly are wanting with him. And so I also wanted to jump in, speaking of players who may continue to play on an injury and things like that, is Mo Williams of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he just recently had to have knee surgery, and he posted to his social media platforms pictures of him preparing for that surgery and things like that. But the interesting thing about Mo is the fact that of what, like, his caption. And again, social media has offered us some light into the intimate and personal lives of our favorite athletes and things like that. And he actually was saying that he was getting ready for the surgery, of course, because like when you see the picture, you know, he's hooked up to an IV, he has a hospital gown on and things like that. So he did mention that he is going to have surgery on his knee, but then also in the caption of the post of the picture, he mentioned that he is going to now take charge of his career. And the way that, the way that he captioned the picture, it seemed as if he was taking stabs at the Cavaliers and their physicians over there, because background story is the fact, so he's been having problems with his knee, and of course the physicians over there have been working with him and making sure that he's taking the necessary precautions and things. But since he's been having this ongoing problem and he has been feeling that things are getting worse and not better, he decided to get a third opinion and decided to go outside of the organization and their physicians to get a second opinion, or well, actually a third opinion in this particular case. And that physician is the one who decided that right away he needed to have knee surgery. And so it's really interesting to see, because, and I can kind of see his frustrations and things like that. But then you have, it's just one of those things where it's really difficult to say, because you could be clear to still play, but still need surgery. You know what I mean? Like, you can play on it. And some people, depending on your surgeon and things like that, there are some surgeons who right away want to have surgery. Like, for instance, like, for example, myself, I used to always dislocate my shoulder playing basketball and things like that. And it wasn't until I was starting to dislocate my shoulder doing just regular everyday activities that the doctors finally were like, okay, you need to have surgery because it's just getting worse and worse. And that was like years after my initial dislocation and things like that. And actually the doctor that I had, he does a lot of shoulder surgeries and things like that. And he was saying that new research is suggesting that the first time you dislocate a shoulder, to just do the surgery right then and there, that first time, and not let it continually happening over and over again. And that is a new practice that some surgeons are adopting. So it kind of just depends on the philosophy of your surgeon. So it's kind of hard to say on whether or not the physicians over with the Cavaliers were just wanting him to play on it and didn't really care, or if, according to their philosophies and what they believe in, that he wasn't that far and that his injury wasn't that serious to need surgery. But so he's decided to have surgery. And of course, you can decide to do whatever it is that you want when it comes to your health. I'm a really big advocate of that. So he's decided to have the surgery. Hopefully he will go through a really smooth and speedy recovery, so that he can, if he chooses to play basketball again. Now, he's 33 years old. He is in discussion, his camp, so like his agent, his manager, and those people who are in support of him. So his team has mentioned that he may be retiring, but he's still on the roster for the Cavaliers, and they are trying to figure out, of course, money wise, what to do as far as like his $2.2 million contract and things like is still left with them. So it's going to be interesting. I, of course, will give you guys an update on him as well as that story develops and his recovery, if you guys care. I mean, you can always look it up. You can see the post. And so if you are interested in the story, if he's somebody that you've been watching and have been following throughout his career, I will be sure to give an update for that as well, because I am interested to see what is going to come up of this, because we did discuss, because we discussed Chris Bosh, where the physicians are telling him different. But of course, those are two different medical conditions. So I get that too. And speaking of medical conditions and injuries and things like that, I want to talk to you today about compression gear. Compression gear is popular with professional and amateur athletes everywhere to prevent injuries and for helping heal injuries. Sleeves has the coolest collection of compression gear around. Sleeves carries sizes for women and men as well as kids. Get compression sleeves in over 200 designs to match your teammates and uniforms. Check out the huge collection of styles and sizes, or order something custom for your team at Sleeves. Get 20% off plus free shipping on purchases of $50 or more when you use the code BASKETBALLPODCAST. Visit Sleeves, that's spelled SLEEFS.com today. That's SLEEFS.com. And welcome back to this episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and just to end on that story of Mo Williams and things like that with his surgery, I did want to read the caption that he posted that sparked up this interest in what he's going through is the fact. So remember, I told you that he posted on Instagram a picture of him with the IV linked up and getting ready for that surgery. And he posted, I quote as a caption, "You know, the crazy thing is I haven't been 100% in a while. Nobody," and I repeat, nobody actually gave a dang about my health but me. Taking control of my career, life, hashtag different mindset as of today. So that is why a lot of people have been interested as to what has been going on and things like that, especially with the Cavaliers, because he's making it seem that they were more interested in having him play on it than addressing his concerns and saying that he was not 100% and that his body was not working at its full potential and that he was injured and things like that. So I also did mention at the beginning of the episode that I wanted to discuss a guard for the Rockets. So Mr. Bobby Brown, he plays for the Houston Rockets, and he had the opportunity to play overseas in China, in Beijing, China, against the Pelicans in their global China games for the preseason. And I mentioned how Anthony Davis had gotten hurt in one of those games and things like that. But the Rockets, which I think is like a cool thing, because it's cool when you have these games overseas, because our overseas fans of the NBA get to watch their favorite players live and up close. But then the players themselves get to see, for some of them, get to see a different side of the world and get to travel to places that they may not have had the opportunity to travel to without these preseason games being overseas and things like that. So what has happened and what has sparked some outrage, and I believe rightfully so, some outrage, especially with fans throughout the United States as well as fans in China and throughout the world and things like that, is so the Rockets had the opportunity to visit the Great Wall of China, which hopefully one day I will also have that opportunity as well. And it's not only an international landmark, it's a treasure and pride of China. And there is a picture with Bobby Brown, and he, in chalk, wrote his name on the Great Wall of China. Now, some of you may be saying, okay, whatever, what's the big deal? Does it really matter? Why is everybody upset about that? But then there are a lot of people who understandably are very upset at and even calling it like graffiti and defacing the structure, the Great Wall of China, and things like that too. And so he did put out a statement that he apologized and took responsibility for his actions and his mistake. And he has been playing overseas. He hasn't been playing 100% just in the NBA. He also has been playing overseas in China, actually, for the last 3 years. So he did express the fact that he was very sorry, and he expressed the fact that he cherishes and loves the Chinese culture and his Chinese fans, and that he did not want to offend anyone but people, because he posted the picture, a lot of people have seen it and a lot of people are really upset, and rightfully so. Like, I mean, I get it. It's like if you were to chalk your name on the Lincoln Memorial. Like, you don't do that. It's a national treasure. It is a memorial. If you don't know anything about the history of the Great Wall of China, a lot of people died constructing that Great Wall, and it has a lot of historical and present day significance for the Chinese, the country of China. And so I can get why people are really upset, and I don't know, it kind of irked me and rubbed me the wrong way too. I don't know. What say you? You guys can let me know on Twitter at GSMC_basketball or on Facebook, because I'm interested to see if it's that big of a deal, because I truly understand why they would be upset about that. And to take a picture, but he did say that other people had, like, when they got there were other names chalked up on the Great Wall. So, which kind of makes me wonder what the Great Wall looks like, present day, if they don't, because you're able to walk along on it and things like that. And it's like a tourist attraction now. So I'm really hoping it's not like trashed and dirty and has like a lot of chalk graffiti and like gum stuck to it. I don't know, because some people don't respect certain things the way that others do. And so I can get why he thought it was okay to chalk his name up there, because you have other names that are chalked up there and you want to like kind of signify like you were there, and it's a moment and it's a place that not a lot of people get to visit and things like that. So I get both sides. I really, really do. But I think it was one of those things that snapping a picture of you being there and enjoying that moment was probably what people wanted and expected and would be suffice, rather than chalking your name, because it's, I don't know. I guess because like chalk does wash off and things like that. But just because, like I said, you wouldn't do that to the Lincoln Memorial. Like, you just wouldn't, because you just don't do that. And it's just showing respect and honor for the historical significance behind the structure. So I get it. I can see why people are a little bit upset. So that's actually going to do it for this episode of the podcast. You have been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts basketball podcast. So you can listen to this episode again, as well as any previous or future episodes on our network website. That's gsmcpodcast.com, as well as on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. I'm your host, Pauline, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.